The microphone is for the streaming stuff, so I have to keep it, but it's a little bit like ridiculous here, but not online, okay? So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Guillem Salvans. I'm from Barcelona. I live in Barcelona. I was born in Barcelona, and I love Barcelona, so I am very happy to do this presentation here in an international environment in my city. I hope we can learn each other something in this half an hour that we have. I'm not an expert at all in mobility, so I'm sorry. But I've been working in Spain, also in Catalonia, but basically also in Spain, the last decade in the implementation of the dual system, and basically working with companies to engage companies in the VET system, which is always a difficult issue, I'm afraid, in all the countries, in all the European countries, not only in Catalonia or in Spain. So I don't know how many countries we have here. Can you just tell me where do you come from? I mean, to realize France, Greece, Portugal, Malta, Georgia, wow, Ireland, France, Italy, Finland, okay, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, with a very good apprenticeship system. Okay, so and also perhaps a part of my biography. I'm apprenticeships expert in the CDFOP apprenticeship experts group. I'm representative for Spain in this case. Okay. So I will try to explain you something about the company's engagement in Spanish VET system. Do you have any idea, some of you? Because it's quite different, for instance, from the German system or this company-based system. We are basically a school-based system. So in this country, VET schools and regional governments have a lot of power to implement and to regulate the whole system. We are a very decentralized country. So like the region of Catalonia and other regions have the responsibility to implement any VET policy, right? At national level, we have more or less 1 million of students enrolled. We have 3 levels, 3 VET levels. I will not go in this deeply. We have a rate of students following VET itineraries, which is around 35, and it's increasing the last years. VET is a little bit in a good moment in our country. I think we've been working quite a lot of people and institutions last decade, and year by year we are increasing a lot the total number of students enrolled in our VET systems. And university system, basically the public universities are decreasing quite a lot the numbers of students enrolled. This is a phenomenon that we are following. And of course, we have quite a lot of a high dropout rate. This is not equivalent, but we have the completion rate. It's around 62%. It means the number of students that are completing the training in the 2 years that in 2 years, which is the normal duration of the program. So here we have students that will graduate in 3 years or in 4 years, but also we have the dropping out. So this completion rate is quite low if you realize it. Okay. And a surprise. Okay. Let's do like surprise. If you imagine the country in Europe who has the highest rate of work learning experience in the VET system, let's say apprenticeships, internships, work-based learning experience. If I think in European countries, I would say perhaps Germany, or I would say, I don't don't know, Switzerland, or I would say, I don't know. But this is the surprise. The highest country is Spain. Here. Why? Basically, everybody does. I mean, in the EVET system, in our EVET system, it's mandatory to have an in-company training period, which is, with this new legal reform, I will explain later on, is at least 25% of the time, of the total duration of the training, right? So it should be 100%, but in some cases, if the students have had previous working experience, they don't need to do this. But I was shocked when I saw this, no? Netherlands, no? Here. 1990, Deutschland, no? Deutschland. And this one, Austria, no? Okay. No, 80. But the highest rate is my country, which is, at least we are champions in something, no? Okay, I will explain, I will go a little bit back in the history, but not very quickly, don't worry. I will explain the 3 periods that we have had in the relationship between companies and vet schools and the vet system during the last decades. There are basically three periods. In the period number 1, in the 90s, the regulators established a mandatory in-company training period for all the vet students, right? So it was in the 90s already, with transversal learning outcomes to be achieved in company, blah, 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 but it was mandatory. It was the first period. In period number 2, in 2012, there was in Spain the introduction of a new pathway, the apprenticeships. In some of your countries, like the Netherlands, Austria, Germany, most of the countries, most of the European countries have this idea of the apprenticeship established within the EVET systems, most of them. So we had this in only 12 years ago. We've been working on that from my foundation, basically. And period number 3, we had a legal reform, quite a very important legal reform in the vet system in 2022. It's a legal reform complex, and we will take, I think, a decade to implement. This legal reform has a lot of issues and takes into consideration several lines. One of them is, of course, the relationship between companies and vet schools, but also stuff like micro-credentials, accreditation of the skills achieved in company, modularization, and so on. But I will focus on this idea of relationship between companies and vet schools. So, period number 1, what happened in the country? I was 15 years old or something in the 90s, or 18 or something. And so I did not live this period. But the thing what happened when the regulators established a mandatory in-company training period for all the EVET system was that everybody said that it was not possible. Companies will not participate. It's going to be very difficult. It is impossible, blah, blah, blah. So 5 years later on, it was possible, everybody did. So, but I've been speaking with representatives of the governments in that period and chambers of commerce, working unions and so on, and people were scared about this idea of introduction this mandatory training period in company. Period number 2, we had this idea of apprenticeships, no? In our system, and what happened in our country was that the introduction of this apprenticeship modality was like I would say, put more prestige into the EVET system. Why? Because in our country, I know in other countries it's different. The apprenticeship modality was foreseen, or is foreseen, like a prestige modality. So the most committed companies, the most committed vet schools, perhaps the most talented students as well, took part of this idea of apprenticeships and participate in this new system. In that period, we had a lot of regional diversity in the implementation of this apprenticeship system, okay? So I said in Spain, regions and regional governments are very important. So in the implementation of apprenticeships, the difference were like a lot. For instance, different levels of payments for the students. No? In the Basque Country, the students got the minimum wage, no? And in another region, they got half of the minimum wage, for instance. Or it was mandatory to train the tutors in company only in 2 regions, in Catalonia, this region, and in Zaragoza, in Aragon, a region beside Catalonia. It was mandatory. We had experience in other regions, but in this characteristic, only in 2 regions was mandatory. The first moment where the student went to the company, it was very different. In regions, during the first years of the program, students were already learning in companies. In other regions, only in the second year. In other regions, the first one and the second one. The learning, the nature of the learning outcomes achieved in company were very different, and so on. So what I'm trying to say is that the whole country was in a pilot trial. And this pilot trial was, from our perspective, very interesting, because we could like take 1 or 2 characteristics in each region that were very, very interesting, and solutions that could emerge from the regions and from these pilot trials that we made in our country. No? So in this second period, we had 2 pathways: apprenticeships and internships. Apprenticeships are only 5% of the EVET students. I know in countries like the Netherlands are, if I'm not wrong, 25%. Of course, in the German speakers countries are the most common itinerary. But in other countries without traditions, they are around also. Without tradition in apprenticeship, they are around 10% as well, sometimes. So finally, we had this big legal reform now a couple of years ago. And this legal reform made something for us very, very important, but it will take time to implement. The legal reform established the dual nature of all the EVET system. It means that, and the law says explicitly, that companies and vet schools are responsible for training EVET students. So at the same level. For some of you, perhaps this is something not very relevant, but for my country, we have school-based system, as I said, as I mentioned previously. So this change is like a political declaration, which is, let's say, we think will change the system in the coming years. And what does it mean? Things like this. The legal reform increased the minimum training time spent in companies. Now, the minimum in the EVET is 25. For the apprenticeship itinerary, the minimum time spent in companies is 35%. Now it's mandatory that all the EVET students have to have a training plan in company. The training plan is made, of course, by the tutor, the in-company tutor, and the tutor of the vet school. This is a technical point, but the nature of the learning outcomes achieved in company changed. These learning outcomes are not anymore transversal skills, let's say, but are a part of the different modules of the training. In Spain, the programs last 2 years, And nowadays, it's mandatory that the student goes to the company to learn in year 1 and in year 2. This is another change. The regulation also enables the joint selection of students by companies and vet schools. It was already the normal situation in the apprenticeship itinerary, in the apprenticeship pathway, but nowadays is for all the EVET system. Another very important point for us, for the first time in history, let's say, I don't know if your countries is like this, but in EVET we have optionality training, and this training, this optional training, can be decided at regional or even at the level at vet school level, let's say. And now we are checking how the regions are implementing the reform, and we realize that in some regions already they are using this change that the law allows, these optional modules, to adapt the training to the local economy, right? So for us, it's important, and it's going to be important, this optional part. For instance, in a region beside Madrid, they are making a catalog, They are making a catalog of optional training that can be offered at local level. And we think this is going to be it will be very interesting in the future. In this region, in Catalonia, we have there was a lot of flexibility already in the system. This idea of adaptation was quite implemented in Barcelona, in the area of Barcelona, but in other regions it wasn't. And with this new law, we think it's going to be a very positive aspect. Of course, the roles of the tutors, both, the company tutor and the tutor in the vet school, are the key of everything, And the law reinforced their roles, and the law says that they will be trained, that their training will be guaranteed. We have to wait the implementation, and specifically from the part of the in-company tutors, how we will train these tutors in the future, because nowadays, as I mentioned, only in 2 regions the training of the in-company tutors is mandatory in Spain. Also, we have seen a development of the roles of intermediate bodies. I know in many countries of Europe this is quite developed, like chambers of commerce are part of the system, and they have specific roles in Denmark, of course in Germany, in many other countries, or business associations like in Switzerland and so on. In our country, it's the first time that a law recognizes these roles. The roles are in the law, and I have to say also that these last 10 years, the commitment of these intermediate bodies has changed a lot, and this is also for the apprenticeship modality, that the apprenticeship modality mobilized, I think, these kind of institutions, and we have already in the country examples like that they have the level of the German examples, let's say, or something. For instance, the Chamber of Commerce of Mallorca in the Balearic Islands, they make a great role in the vet system. Or in La Rioja, in the north of Spain, we have another organization very committed, but we have already, I would say, dozens, let's say 2 or 3 dozens of organizations, intermediate bodies, very committed with apprenticeships, with the EVET, with VET, and this is something that it's positive also for our country. And let me check. Okay. And finally, another measure that reinforced the dual principle is that in the apprenticeship itinerary, students will be linked through a labor contract, which reinforced the idea of commitment from the side of the companies as well. So, questions? Do you have any question or comment that you want to make? Do you think it is interesting or inspiring for you or something? Both, both. And the law says that, the law says the public authorities will guarantee the training and functions of these tutors, and this declaration, let's say, and what we are seeing it from the side of the VET schools, there is an effort to train, and it's happening. No, the regional governments have plans to train not only tutors but also teachers, dual coordinators, other figures that I did not get I had not time to go, but. For us, the challenge is from the side of the companies. In the side of the companies, as I mentioned, it's only mandatory in 2 regions, and we have experience like in most of the regions, for training and this in-company tutors. But it's difficult. It's difficult if it's not mandatory. It's difficult for regional authorities or intermediate bodies that sometimes offers the training. It's difficult to attract companies like a 2 days training or something. So we are in some regions they are trying to train them through online training or parts online. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but it is important. I mean, if we want to have this idea of this dual VET, is a key point.
Can I take the micro?
Yes.
Hear anything? Thank you.
Yeah, I got a question about the apprenticeship pathway. Does the student receive any form of payment, like it happened, for example, in Germany, or they get some payment, salary?
Again, when the apprenticeship was introduced in 2012, this point wasn't regulated. This concrete point, which was, in my opinion, a mistake. And at regional level, again, we had a lot of diversity. In some regions, they did not get a payment. Normally, in the south of the country regions, in this region was mandatory from the first day, the payment. And in other regions as well, I would say Baleares, mandatory, Baleares, the Basque Country, Catalonia, Aragon, and others that I'm in Valencia as well. So there was diversity, and also diversity in the levels of payment and in the link, because in 2 regions was mandatory the labor contract already in 2012. But with this new law, in the apprenticeship modality, which is 5% of the EVET students, it's mandatory the labor contract. With a transition period, blah, blah, blah. But in 2 years will be mandatory the labor contract, which in Spain is linked to the minimum wage of the country, because it's the training labor contract, okay, which is linked to the minimum wage. And in Spain, it's quite high now. The minimum wage is something like 1,200 euros.
Who pays the student?
The companies.
Can I ask a question?
Companies.
Thank you. So I am from Georgia, as I mentioned, and we are having difficulties in the process of bringing business sector into the VET system. So you mentioned originally it started at some point when people thought it would be difficult to, also in Spain, to involve private sector. And then after 5 years, you mentioned it was possible. What was the main challenges you think that the country had to overcome in that regard? And do you still have the challenges right now? Because, for example, my institution is a construction institution, and it's a public-private partnership project. So our founders are Ministry of Education of Georgia and a private construction company. So this is a good collaboration, but it's one of the unique projects in Georgia, and it's not that easy to bring on other private companies into the vet sector. So probably challenges would be the question.
We had many challenges 30 years ago and today, and of course, and in my opinion, it's a never-ending task. I mean, but
Incentives are the most important, probably. What do you think was the incentives that made in Spain the private sector get involved?
for a let's focus on 2012, because in the history, maybe I could not explain it. 30 years ago, I was 15, as I mentioned. So, but I think, I don't know. It's always a difficult topic, okay? There are strategies that function. One of the strategies that function is working through these intermediate bodies, at least for us. Other strategies working is making the first project with companies with sense, let's say. I mean, not all the companies are ready to do this and in the right moment, and sometimes or the system works better for some situations in relation to others, and I will explain later this idea. In my opinion, to attract companies, at least in the apprenticeship itinerary, but also in the internships, it functions in three situations, where the learning, first one, in sectors that need workers. If we have a sector that needs workers, the sector will be more open to participate, and if we have economic growth as well. So let's start for these sectors. No? This is the first one. The second one, sectors with a lot of people to close to the retirement. This is another approach, and we saw it when the sectors are scared because a lot of people will take the retirement. This is another opportunity to attract companies. And the third one is the sectors with a long period of training before the worker is ready to work. These three situations, for me, at least in my country and my experience, are the situations where attracting companies is the most difficult, the most easy. The most difficult, of course, small companies, very small companies. No? How do we attract very small companies to this system if we want that in these companies, these companies are willing to train curricular content? So perhaps the first years we have to make a little bit like this. Okay?
There was no tax regulations, right?
No. There are incentives, for instance, in the contract, in the labor contract. The social contributions are free for companies, at least for the medium and small companies. And if you contract later on the student, you have also money for your company. But I would say work with intermediate bodies, start in this sector, in these three situations I mentioned previously, and not having the idea of, and I'm talking for the apprenticeship issue now, that everybody can be involved in apprenticeships. On the other hand, for the internship, if it's mandatory, a solution, we have to find a solution for this statement. No? It's mandatory that the student has to do this. So governments also have been working to push companies to get into the system, but we are already working with this background of 30 years, which is now more easy, no? So the challenges, I will end now with the challenges. Another question, yes, okay.
Excuse me, but I was wondering if there have been reflections of introducing mobility also in these apprenticeship schemes, because I'm working for an association which is very much involved in promoting apprentice mobility, and we have seen, of course, because of the contract, because of the remuneration, this could be an additional obstacle. But if you have a new scheme, it might also be the right moment to introduce mobility to apprenticeships, because we firmly believe that they should have the same opportunities, the apprentices, as other learners.
Yes, as I mentioned, I'm not an expert at all in mobility, but I'm an expert in apprenticeships, and I can tell you that yes, I think my idea, it's more difficult in apprenticeship than mobility, because we have a working contract, we have to stop this working contract, or I don't know, we have to look for a company abroad, outside our country, and how do we link with this other company through another contract? It's complicated. I think it could be a good point for Spain, and it's happening, to work at least in the beginning with this internship pathway for mobility, because this internship pathway allows the in-company training from, I mentioned, the minimum is 25% of the total duration, but you can go till 35, which is quite a lot of hours. You can spend 700 hours in company in the internship, which is a nice duration to make it abroad. No? For the apprenticeships, difficult. Well, it's possible, of course, and it has to be possible, and it should be possible because in some countries the normal bed system is apprenticeship, like Germany, Switzerland. So it has to be possible, but from the point of view, from the Spanish point of view, with this other itinerary, I think the mobility from here to Europe will be in the internship pathway. So let me summarize the challenges very quickly. There is a first challenge: managing the change. No, this dual nature of the EVET system is a change. Let's say I did not go deep on that change, but I mentioned one. No, the skills achieved in company are not anymore transversal skills, but are skills achieved in each of the module that takes part of the training program. So what does it mean? That now we have to agree with the company learning outcomes for different modules of the training programs. This is difficult. It is difficult to engage companies in this kind of changes. There is many other changes. The idea here is this is a change, and we don't need to adapt the old system to the change, but changing. And I think in some regions and in some vet schools and in some companies, the temptation is, let's say, okay, if we do it like let's adapt. Let's adapt a little bit the thing we did before with this internship, and it's done. No, this is a cultural. This is a very big change, and it needs time and management. The second, mindset changes. This has something that we are in the middle of the way. I think vet schools, in my opinion, have to see the clients. They have two clients, students, of course, but also companies. And this is a cultural change from the side of the vet schools. I think, especially in this region and others, I think we are on the way to change this, but vet schools have to work with this mentality. And companies have to believe that they are training companies, and we need years for this. We still need years for this, in the sense of they cannot complain anymore about the training. No, I don't get the right students. They don't have the skills I need. Blah blah blah. Okay, you don't need to complain anymore. You have a framework, and it's possible for you to train these students, to adapt the training, and and to be a training company. So this is a cultural change very strong from the side of the companies, the Spanish companies, which has already started. And we have very, very nice and great examples that I would say have the level of other countries like Germany or Austria or so on. And finally, the small companies. We have already mentioned the difficulties that we have to communicate to this company that has 10 workers, that has to be involved in training the vet students. But and this is my final idea, the context where this reform is being operating, it's a context that will work on us, because we have had economic growth for the last years, and a lot of people that will retire in 5 years. So this context will make companies more ready to train, and also small companies, because the other option, if they don't train, they don't get qualified workers, so they will be forced. Thank you very much. Vaig bé de temps? Sí? Any other question? Or I hope it was inspiring for you, or it was useful. Yes. And ya está. Sí. Very happy to speak in English in my city. Okay?
Has d'explicar una coseta.
Sí.
Que no cal parlar.